Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to Lost in the Wasteland, my weekly interview show where I learn a little bit more about somebody else's perspective on movies. And one special message for this particular episode: you got to look on the bright side of life. And if that's not a hint to you and you don't get that reference and you think I'm going insane, we're talking about Life of Brian from Monty Python. And Adam, thank you so much for coming on yet again for me to ask you a bunch of questions about this amazing film.
Yeah, thanks for having me for exactly that. An amazing film. Yeah, yeah, always a pleasure. Sorry, yeah, always a pleasure.
And would you like to, since this is your interview, would you like to shamelessly plug anything for people to go check out your thoughts on things?
My letterbox is the obvious one. It's Kerbryder, Kerbryder. I'll also write a regular monthly column for SiftPop.com called 20th Century Flicks, where I look at movies from the 20th century, funnily enough, and basically see if they hold up to modern eyes and maybe do some analysis on them. Yeah.
And that's probably my favorite monthly article that SiftPop does because I appreciate
Oh,
looking back
wow.
at some of the older films even more than mine. So there you go.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad someone reads it.
Well, that's the thing. I love because most discourse in film reviewing stuff like that obviously are new movies, but it's nice to actually take a look at some older films and hopefully open some
Mm,
eyes. My second favorite one's the Outside Market, like the
yep.
animated one where they focus on international animated films, which anything that's going to put more eyes on some films that people need to go
Yeah.
back and check out. I love that. So, which speaking of, Life of Brian from the Monty Python crew, born on the original Christmas in the stable next door to Jesus Christ. Brian of Nazareth spends his life being mistaken for the Messiah. And this is directed solely by Terry Jones this time around. No Terry Gilliam co-directing like Holy Grail, but we have the whole crew. We got Graham Chapman, John Cleese, Michael Palin, Terry Gilliam, Eric Idle, and Terry Jones, and everybody else along with them. And this film obviously is a little controversial to some who are a little uptight about their religion. As a as a confirmed Roman Catholic, I have a ball. So gotta have a sense of humor, right? But
Absolutely.
now, Adam, why did you choose Life of Brian?
Um, why did I choose it? Because it's a brilliant film. Actually, on my letterbox, I have a list of all my favorite films from each decade. So my favorite film of each decade, and Life of Brian is my favorite film of the 70s. And if you think of the 70s, and me being a Star Wars fan, that's kind of a big call. So,
Uh,
look, it's hilarious. Look, it's the perfect comedic satire. It takes the piss brilliantly out of religion, out of politics, out of human disorganization and our rebellious attitude. This is just this. It's really thematically dense. And if you've seen some of my films with Shane before, videos with Shane before, you know I like thematically dense films, and this is certainly one of them. But it's also one of the funniest movies of all time to boot. Yeah.
it's one of those kinds of films because like I love Holy Grail, love that so much, and this one cuts deep, like
Mm,
cuts deep, and
it
there's
sure does.
it's so bold in its comedy and what it tries to tackle. Now, where does Life of Brian stand for you in terms of all of Monty Python's projects?
We just alluded to the Holy Grail. I think I'm one of the rare people who likes this more than the Holy Grail. I really like the Holy Grail, but I love Life of Brian. Holy Grail has a lot to say, but for me, this is their best stuff. I've not really watched a lot of their actual TV show,
Mhm.
or anything much else they put out. If we look at maybe the Fish Called Wanda, you could almost call that a Monty Python release, but
Yeah.
maybe not. Fish Called Wonder would go close up there, but Life of Brian is their best for me.
Oh, I love Fish Called Wanda. It
Yeah,
makes me
it's
so happy
fantastic.
seeing Michael Palin in other things because he's my
Yeah,
favorite member of Monty Python. Biggest Dicketh.
Well, that'll lead into the next question.
Yeah, he's so great, and of course John Cleese is great in that too, and Kevin Kline fits so well with them, and Jamie Lee Curtis has her moments too, but like I feel like she's kind of like the straight anchor to hold that whole movie together. But speaking of Monty Python, like if you haven't watched Flying Circus and you don't want to like commit to watching all of Flying Circus, just watch And Now for Something Completely Different. Seeing as it's just a greatest hits of Flying Circus, except redone better. So like they have a higher budget and everything.
I actually wanted to check that out. Yeah, I should do.
It's one of those things where it's like I on a regular basis say, and now for something completely different. And it just works so well in so many situations. And it's literally that film is just a sketch comedy show condensed into a movie. And Meaning of Life is kind of the same thing. It's just very distinct chapters and organized. This and Monty Python and the Holy Grail have an actual narrative.
Yes.
Debatably the other one. Which they're trying to get somewhere. That's the whole entire point of Holy Grail. This actually has a narrative. And there's a plot. What's going on here? And it's still hilarious. Well, I might have jumped the gun on this question then, but who is the MVP of the troupe?
Dude, I loved your answer because it's my answer too. I love Michael Palin. He's everything to this group. He's the most dynamic. He's probably the best physical comedian of them all. But he's also a very smart man. Just you can see the projects he's done by himself since, like he has his own travel show and what have you. And he's a very smart dude. And I don't know, I just love Michael Palin, just the way he does everything. Like I don't know, it's hard to put into words, but he's brilliant.
Because like I feel like Graham Chapman kind of has the unfortunate role of kind of being the one who kind of has to hold it together, because like he doesn't get a chance to be like the really funny one a whole lot in a lot of their projects. And John Cleese is a force, and he's like the biggest one out of all of them, so like you feel his presence. And Terry Jones is silly. Eric Idle is like the weird manic one. And of course Terry Gilliam does all the animation, then randomly shows up to look like a creepy guy. Because he kind of is. But like Palin does it all. He does so many things. And I'm just thinking of the Lumberjack song. Oh, I love the Lumberjack song. But like I loved it. He was kind of terrifying in Brazil. And I loved that he was in Death of Stalin from Armando Iannucci that came out. God, is that almost like 5 years ago at this point that came out 5-6 years ago? But like he's just such a funny person, and he can be really straight-laced character. He could be outlandish, over the top, and he just do it all. And he certainly gets some of the funniest bits in this movie.
He does. The ex-leper scene itself. That's such a great scene.
It's one of their lower brow pieces of humor, because like that's the thing about Monty Python. They're so intelligent. They are all so intelligent. And
they all met at Oxford University, didn't they?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure most of them met at Oxford, and then some of them met at another really famous university.
Afterwards,
And it's just like you have all of these men just at the peak of their intelligence coming up with these really creative and biting and intelligent things. And then you have Biggeth Diggeth.
Just the stupidest shit.
Michael Palin is so committed, and he is trying to break people. You can tell.
Yes, he is exactly what he's doing.
In that scene,
that was his mission.
People are breaking, because how could you not? He gets right up in their faces and just yells at people. I would ruin so many. I would kill so many takes Actually, honestly, I'd probably kill so many takes working with them in general because I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't keep my stuff together. But yeah, he's so fantastic. And then so like this is like the big question, obviously, about this film. But what do you feel like this film has to say about faith and religion? Besides a lot.
Controversial.
Yes.
Yeah, besides a lot, it's well, look, I'm an atheist. I make no apologies for that. For me, basically, it's a futile endeavor. Like religion is just it's basically it's stupid to put it in another way. But uh, trying to choose my words carefully. But basically, we all end up in the same place. Religion, it's never done anything for anyone. Surely, like nothing of it, not to the intent that it's supposed to or that it pretends to. Yeah. For me, this just speaks that believing in something is not there. I mean, it's spoken throughout the entire film how these people who represent the masses, just follow because they need a leader. They need someone to validate themselves rather than being able to validate themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the short-ish answer.
It's and here's the thing. So like I'm agnostic at this point in my life. And I'm a confirmed Roman Catholic. I went through all of it. I went through my first Holy Communion. I am Shane Charles Francis Canto because St. Francis took care of them animals. Love him for that. And it's the kind of thing where like this film, I feel like is much more biting towards the institution of religion. Because the thing is, I very strongly believe that faith can be something that is very beneficial to people. When you put human greed in it, that's when we
Yes.
start having a problem. And that's the
Yeah.
thing. Who runs
Yeah.
religions? People. Who
Money machines.
wants to be in authority positions? People who want authority and power. And they're probably going to take advantage of it. And like one of my favorite shows on television is Righteous Gemstones. And that whole entire show is the ugly look of a bunch of religious people stashing their pockets full of money, living in mansions. It's not what this is about. And what's so fascinating about this film is it's like it calls it out on like the need for external guidance.
Yes.
Because the thing is, like, people can turn internally and try to find ways to guide themselves, but it's like the people in this movie look more into symbols than literary critics. It's like the only people that look more into symbolism than religious people are critics. And it's just like they'll look so deeply in anything. It's like, what does this mean? It could mean nothing. It means nothing. It's a sandal.
Exactly. It's a bush.
Yeah. It's one of those kinds of things where it's just like, I love how this film looks at the lunacy of the collective when you have that group think going.
Yeah.
Everybody's convinced of everything. And no matter how hard Brian's like, leave me alone. I am not a prophet. I am not doing any of this. They still keep pushing.
And the ending where he's sorry, you go.
And I think the two funniest, I feel like, religious role-based jokes that they have in this. One at the very beginning where women can't go to stonings. So you have a whole bunch of women buying fake beards and showing up. They're talking like this. And they keep using the Lord's name in vain and they get hit by stones. And then John Cleese's character in that whole entire scene is absolutely hilarious and makes the wrong decision of saying it, and then they just dump him with a giant stone.
Nobody throws a stone until I say so, even if they do say Jehovah.
And then the end. That crucifixion scene where I don't want to be in the same section as the people. there's still all of that prejudice and hate towards each other in the name of religion. And what
Yes.
religion should be pushing that as a foundation of what they believe in? Just like find purpose in life, love all of God's creatures and other
Yep.
humans. But
Yep.
it's so funny. It's like, I don't want to be in that section. It's just like they're literally
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
crucified and they can't get over their prejudices with each other. And then, like, the group of people who come up, it's like, oh my God, they're going to save him. And, like, we're going to kill ourselves in your honor. Start
Yeah.
stabbing himself. And it's just like, wow, this is it's ridiculous.
There are two films I watched when in my agnostic phase. I'd say in my later teen years that I think helped me figure out that atheism. Well, just I was like, I wasn't sure, but now I'm 100% sure. But the two films that made me realize that lead me to atheism is The Life of Brian, or not The Life of Brian, and Dogma, which I think is really ironic because they're both about religion, but they both made me realize none of it's real because it's just the way they talk about them. And they say a lot about. I don't like to say the word stupidity, but it's not the right word. But just the fallacy of it, the whole activity of religion.
Well, and the thing is, it's like structured religions are created by human beings who are
Hmm.
hypocritical,
Yeah,
and like people are hypocrites. They believe one thing, and then you can call them out on not believing in something based on the same exact logic, but that's it.
yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
all of that is in organized religion, and it shows. And
Yep.
it's one of those kinds of things where it's just like, one of the things that always bothered me and why I don't regularly go to church is like, if I don't go to church, I'm a bad person. But the human beings that I know in my own life who regularly go to church and who act like horrible human beings, they're in
Yeah,
better shape because they went to church.
yeah, yeah. Because they're righteous. They're self-righteous because I believe in this and that. You don't. So well, God's going to protect me no matter what I do. So I can say and do whatever I want. I can be the biggest arsehole on the planet. I'll yell at waiters. I'll yell at people who serve me food because God will forgive me. Oh, fuck off. Well, sorry, you might need to bleep that, but that side of it, that hypocrisy really gets under my skin a lot.
Well, it's like George Carlin's character from Dogma who like blesses his
Yes. Yeah.
golf
These
clubs.
golf clubs.
It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just like that's what you're using the power of God for in this situation, so you're
Yeah.
better at golf.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
it's all those kinds of things. And the Romans had their own religions. They just had more gods than us. Uh, a lot more gods than us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they have their own things. And like I appreciate them making fun. Like one of the scenes that really gets me is when they're doing Brian's doing all the graffiti, and instead of John Cleese stopping him, he's correcting him on his
Yeah.
Latin
Yeah. Yeah.
and
It's
his
great.
Roman numerals. And it's just like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
It's a great scene. And then they don't nick him till the morning, like once they see it all. Now you're busted.
Absolutely. Now,
Great.
speaking of, what are some of your favorite gags from the film?
How long have we got? Well, I mentioned before the ex-leper scene. I think is hilarious. Um, Biggest Dickus is obviously one of the probably the most known one. That's fantastic. Um, and there's a lot of throwaway lines, and I've only written down one, but there's one where Brian's mother, who
Brian.
she's talking about, she's talking about Brian's father, who his father was, who was a Roman, and how she gave up so much. But she said something about I could have as much gold as I could eat. She said, and I was like, that's just so damn funny for no reason. Like that's one of my favorite gags. As much gold as I could eat. And the whole scene with the rebellious group. Sorry, my cat's just been
Mhm.
funny. when the whole scene where they're talking about what have the Romans ever done for us when they're around the table, and they just start listing all these things that the Romans have done. What about the aqueducts? Oh yeah, the aqueducts and the roads, and they just keep going on and on. They keep adding new stuff.
It's they repressed us and they slaughtered us, but you know what? We have running water.
We've got all this stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so good. The sorry, you go. No, you go.
I was just gonna say, as somebody who took Latin for 5 years and learned a lot of
Wow.
Roman history, and whose
Yep.
some of my ancestors are from Rome, it is hilarious looking at how much they skewer Rome, the Romans in this.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's so clever, and the fact that Brian's dad turned out to be a Roman soldier who just
Yeah. Yeah.
raped his mom, and it's just like, and this is going to sound terrible, but like I'm just imagining like Terry Jones and Drag being like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you want a piece of me?" And, like that's what happens.
Yeah.
It just I love Brian's
Uh,
mom. This Terry Jones is
she's
absolutely
great.
hilarious as his mother.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So great. I've got a few more to mention. I've got the "You Lucky Lucky Bastard." That scene is fantastic with Michael Palin chained to the wall. Um, the biggest one I remember when I probably first watched this film, and again I would have been high, but that random UFO scene where he
yes.
falls into this UFO and gets into this space war. Oh my god, that killed me. It's just so funny. It's just so random and dumb. It's
Yeah.
great. Um, And the haggling scene where he's on the run from the Romans and he has to haggle for that
It's not how you
beard.
haggle. Come on.
20 shekels. Yeah, it's so great.
You're
It's
supposed
so
to
great.
say 10. And then I
All
go
right,
down to
10 then.
19, and then you go to 11. There you go. It's so true, though. It's just
Yeah.
like, no, it's like, I feel like it's like going to buy a car where it's just like,
Yeah.
wait, you're not supposed to just buy this at sticker price. What the hell are you talking
Yeah.
about? Like, you're supposed to haggle with me at least a little bit. It's all
Yeah.
part
Yeah.
of part of the thrill of being a salesman that
Yeah.
Eric Idle's enjoying
Yeah.
in that moment. And
Yeah.
that's just so fun because it's accurate. Like that kind of stuff happens
It
in
is.
shops like
Absolutely.
that.
The thrill of the deal. And then there's the whole part where is it? I can't when they're hiding from the Romans and they're just hiding behind curtains or ducking in a basket, and the Romans come in and found this spoon, but it's the old guy. I think it's Sid, someone, but he just these phrases he keeps talking about, like he's my knees are bent, my nose is knackered. But just the way they come off, it's just really hilarious to me. I don't know if you remember the part I'm talking about, but it's just really, really funny stuff.
I remember at the very beginning too, the whole thing where they're trying to listen to like the
Yes.
Jesus, and just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
can you shut up? It's like I'm
Yeah.
trying to listen here, and it's
Shut
just
up,
like,
big nose.
yeah, and that whole entire thing where it's just like anytime you go to any kind of event and get stuck in the back row,
Yeah.
you're just like I'm in the back and I'm trying to watch this concert and everybody's standing up in front of me. It's like, sit down, I can't see anything. And it's so
Yep.
relatable, but like
Yeah.
it's like you think about like Jesus speaking and everyone being like,
Mm.
but no, how's everyone gonna hear him in the back?
Yeah,
It's
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
so realistic.
Well, let's say something about the someone will inherit the earth. Who did they actually say? Did they say the Greek will inherit the earth or something? The Greek, and then they said, "Oh no, it's the meek. It's the meek." Oh, that's nice. That's nice and good for them.
Yes. Uh, Now, what do you feel like are some of the obviously we talked a lot about the humor and the themes and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
what other things do you feel like are some of the strengths of the film?
Um, well, look, you kind of alluded to it before too, but it's actually a pretty tight narrative.
Hmm.
Despite it's actually still basically a series of sketches sewn together, but
Yeah.
it's still a really great narrative. And the one that kind of cements that for me is that entire scene where they're talking about the Judean people. They're in the Colosseum and they're watching the the slaughter down below, but
Yeah.
it's the that whole scene is kind of such a actually um, modernly prescient scene where someone wants to be a woman and just like, can't have babies. That whole scene,
Yeah.
the trans community just would not like that, obviously. But that's such a great scene. It's really prescient. But so that scene itself is basically a sketch scene, right? But it's sewn in together beautifully into this entire narrative. I think that's the main strength of the film is that it tells it's good story along the way.
Well, yeah, it builds a story throughout while also having each of these gags and scenes that are
Yes.
given a chance to breathe. And the whole Eric Idle thing where it's just like, who says I can't? It's just like,
Yeah.
who should be able to tell you if you can or not? It's like one of those kinds of
Yeah.
things. It's just like them just bringing that up in like a
Mm.
mainstream movie in the 70s is kind of
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
they got
I
that
want to
George
have
Harrison
babies.
money and they're just like, we're going for it.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad you brought up that George Harrison thing. Have you seen the story? John Cleese telling that story of how George Harrison got to fund the movie.
Oh, I
He's, I
feel like
think it's on a, I think it's on a Colbert. I think he does it on the Late Show with Colbert.
I feel
He
like I've
tells that
heard it, but I
story.
can't remember a single thing about it. But I'm like, I feel like I listened to that before. I might have even
Yeah.
heard slightly about it in some George Harrison documentaries about like how he got
Ah,
caught up
maybe.
in this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, basically, for people watching this, no one could fund it. They gave it to everyone. No one would give it money, and
Who
one of
would?
them knew some. Yeah, well, that's right, because I guess it's a touchy subject, religion, right?
Yeah.
But at the time, one of them knew someone who knew George Harrison, and he got the script to him. And George has gone, yeah, I'll give you $2 million for it. I'm like, and they asked him why. He goes, well, I want to see the film, don't I? He read it, liked it, and goes, well, I want to watch it. That's why he gave him $2 million. Because I want to see it now.
Has that Beatles money?
Good
Like,
reason as any, right? Like if you have that, yeah,
don't
if they have
question
that,
him on what he does with
if you
his
have that
Beatles
fuck,
money. And
exactly,
like at this
you've got
point, he
that
had
fuck,
been a solo artist for years, making all
yeah,
that
yeah,
like George Harrison money too. So yeah,
yeah, yeah,
plenty.
yeah. Look, arguably George was the best out of all of them. Most talented,
Agreed.
arguably. Yeah,
Start a whole
yeah,
other topic. It's like who's the
yeah,
best
yeah,
Beatle? But like one of my other favorite gags is the whole naming of groups.
yes.
It's like,
Oh yeah,
oh,
the
we're
Japan
not
People's Front.
them. We're this,
Yeah,
which has two words flipped.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. The People's Front of Jujia. Fuck off with the Japan People's Front. And then there's
yes.
the one guy down there, and it's the one guy sitting by himself. Splitter, splitter. So
Yeah.
funny because he
It's
split from the group. It's so great.
it's so true though. It's like and
Yeah, absolutely.
that's why so many social justice movements don't work, is that you're too
Correct.
busy breaking into pieces and
Correct.
arguing with each other.
Yes, that's right. That's a big narrative in this. A big theme in this movie is that the powers just go on doing what they do, powering, having their power and money over everyone else, because underneath people can't get organized to actually stand up against them and actually fight for what's right, because no one's organized.
Well, and in the mortal words of, if I'm not mistaken, this was Lyndon B. Johnson, President of the United States. If you give white poor white people somebody to hate, they'll let you pick their pockets.
Yeah. Oh,
And
man.
that's how power works.
Man.
If you have them arguing with each other, you can just keep
Yeah.
doing on whatever the hell. And how long
Divide
did
and
the
conquer,
Romans do
man.
that? Centuries. They just
Yep.
kept waltzing into all these different places and then messed
Yeah.
up because they messed with the wrong Germanic tribes. And then they just came in and were just like, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
And then Dark Ages. And then,
Yeah.
so
That's what it's like. They come in and say, they said that about you. And then they go to this group, they said that about you, and get them fighting. And meanwhile, we're doing whatever the hell we want.
exactly.
Yeah. That's
This
human
film's so
nature.
intelligent in so many different ways, looking at things like that.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you have smart writers. You could
Yes, absolutely.
you could be stupid funny talking about biggest dicketh, and then having
Yeah,
all this deep commentary on religion and
that's
government,
right.
and it all works. And that's Monty
That's
Python.
why I love this film. It's
It's
why I love
like
it. It's
in
just
Holy Grail, where it's just like, I'm Arthur, King of the Britons. Like, I didn't remember electing you. I am your
yeah.
king. Just because some aquatic twat chucked a scimitar at you, you think that's some
Yeah.
kind of service or form of government?
Yeah. Yeah, that's great, isn't it?
And it's just
That's one
like
of the greatest lines in history, that. I think it's brilliant.
that whole scene in Holy Grail is on a whole other level,
Yeah.
because that
Yeah.
takes that movie to like, that's like, let's throw that in there. And then Life of
Yeah.
Brian is like, let's make a whole movie like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So
100%.
we got away with that one. Let's try to do a
Yep.
whole movie now. And they did.
Yeah.
And they got away with it.
Yeah.
And we're still talking about it now in 2023.
50 years later. Yeah.
Now, what do you feel like? So we talked about like the themes of religion and stuff like that. What do you feel like this film says about human nature and humanity?
Kind of what we just touched on about the infighting. Yeah, just to maybe repeat, I think we might have jumped ahead with our commentary there, but just kind of repeating on that, which is what I've got noted is just how they keep us, they, I'll say they keep us at bay by having us fight against each other and disorganizing us. And the fact that that whole scene near the end where Brian could be freed from his crucifixion, but they're all sitting around the table writing minutes. That's the whole. That's so. It's. I've seen this movie, I don't know, a dozen times at least. It's still so fucking frustrating watching
So,
them just ignore her.
on a side note, I watched a film called The Owners yesterday, and as a
Oh,
screening, that was a screener link that I got. It is a Czech film about an HOA meeting, having a meeting about funding, what they're going to do with the property and stuff like that.
right.
The most frustrating shit I've ever watched. Because the thing is, like, you mentioned, like, there's one person who's like, you can't leave the room. You're marked attended on the meeting. If you leave, we have to axe the whole meeting. And it's just like,
God.
why? And like, somebody's taking the minutes. I'm like, should I include that? I'm like, did it happen? But like, is it relevant?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
just all of that. And that's the thing. They're too busy with their, and obviously members of Monty Python have a lot of feelings about bureaucracy, especially
yeah,
Terry Gilliam.
yeah,
That just like looking at how absurd that whole scene is, they're too busy worrying about arbitrary rules that they've made for themselves to
yes.
actually do the action. We're
They're
too,
lost in their own self-importance. That's the problem.
yeah.
That's what it is. They're just self-important.
Well, that's the thing. The people running the groups are too busy trying to make sure that they have control over these groups instead of doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And how we worry more, like, we're literally going to die, but our prejudices are more important for us to throw out there. It's like, I'm not going to die next to this Jewish person. I want to be in that
Yeah,
section of
yeah.
crucifixions.
There
It's just
was an
like,
agreement. Yeah.
and just the sheer amount of absurdity that this film has to say about like the trivial things that we'll get caught up in instead of worrying
Yeah.
about the things that actually matter.
Yes, because we're actually scared to tackle those bigger issues. We don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll pretend we'll all talk, no action is basically what it is. That's the fundamental human nature. All talk, no action. They're again lost in their own self importance and trying to impress someone that doesn't want to be impressed by them. I think.
Yeah, Brian wants nothing to do with any of these people. Well, and
No, no.
even the like the gaslighting of like Brian's mother just accepting the fact that she was raped by a Roman soldier
Yeah, yeah,
and,
yeah,
just, and
yeah,
then he's
yeah.
defending it. And it's just
That's the
like,
way. That's the way it was at the time, right?
You're the victim here. Like, this should never
Yeah,
happened.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
and it's just like, wow. And that's the thing. People in power could F you literally
Yeah,
and just be like,
yeah,
well, it's your fault.
yeah, yeah.
Deal with it.
Exactly. Yeah,
And
you're a woman. I've got the right to do that. That's what it was like, you know. It's kind of like the stuff we're dealing with now, socially wise, like people trying to be cancel someone for a tweet they said 10 years ago. Different times. It's like comparing. I don't know if anyone's watching this is a motor racing or Formula One fan. Like this is a good. I think it's a good comparison. But if you follow Formula One, just like comparing great drivers of the eras. You can't say who's the best in 2023 and compare them to who was the best in 1973 because it's different eras. They were driving different cars. Same as baseball. Like you have, using different equipment.
Adam, please do not get in the way of people arguing forever about who's better, Michael Jordan or LeBron James. Just
Oh,
don't do it.
that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing. You can't compare. You just can't compare.
Well,
And
and
you
that's
can't
the thing.
compare it just by the amount of rings they won because they didn't win the ring
Everybody
themselves.
will come up with their rationale on how they can
Oh,
compare them.
exactly, exactly.
Well, like I found this
And
interesting thing. It's just like I mentioned off air because I was talking some baseball, I was checking Philly scores in between recordings. But like Shohei Ohtani, people are saying he's the next Babe Ruth because he's a pitcher and a hitter. And I saw somebody and there's people out there, it's like, you can't even compare him. Babe Ruth's the greatest of all time. And then somebody's like,
bullshit. That's not true.
wait a minute. You're trying to tell me Babe Ruth, who never once fed, well, this person was from Dominican Republic. It's just like, you're trying to tell me that Babe Ruth, who never once hit against a Dominican, is going to be better than what?
Exactly.
It's almost incomparable because back in that time, it literally was just white people. There
Yeah,
was
exactly.
nobody
Yep.
else. You even had a
Yep.
whole separate league of where black players played and
Yes.
Latino players wound up playing. And then they
Yeah.
finally were integrated. And now today, it's
Yep.
everybody. And yeah, it's a completely different game. The ball was different. The rules were different. Everything is different. They literally just made.
Sports science is different. Humans are different. There's natural human evolution in that as well. Like we've gotten better. Sports science has gotten better. Fitness, diet, everything. So you could, if you put Babe Ruth at his peak in today's game, he wouldn't hit. He wouldn't get to first base. He'd strike out every time. Every time. He'd be shit. He wouldn't get a game.
Well, that's the thing. I don't, and that's the whole entire thing because we can't compare it. Because like, what if you gave him today's equipment
Exactly.
and everything, where he wasn't like batting with a bat made of sawdust and trying to hit
Yeah.
a ball that was a brick? And
But he was also a bit of a, wasn't he also a bit of a fatso? Like he wasn't out of shape and stuff.
well,
Wasn't he? Like,
that's hilarious. He was fat for then,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is
Yeah.
like, I here's
But
the
for a
thing. I look
professional
at pictures
athlete,
of Babe Ruth and I'm like, he looks like Kyle Schwarber from the Phillies now, who has a slight gut,
right.
and that's it.
Well, look, I'm not about to start fat shaming anyone. I mean, I know what I'm like. I know me, but
Well, that's
for
the
a
thing.
professional athlete who's currently the best of all time, there's no way you get a gig today. You just wouldn't.
It's a crazy thing. And like I've seen pictures of like Lou Gehrig from back then. I'm like, he looks like he was made out of stone. Like, I'm pretty sure his
Yeah.
thighs were like this. I'm like, what
Yeah,
is that? Like he
yeah,
stood
right.
next to Babe Ruth and was like twice as wide as him, just from muscle. I'm just like, holy
Wow.
shit. Just imagine
Yeah,
if like
right.
this man didn't get sick.
Yeah,
Well, and that's the
yeah.
thing. It's so hard to like it's
It's so ironic that he got sick with Lou Gehrig's disease, though, right?
he did indeed have ALS, and then they named the whole entire disease after him. But it's so crazy to compare a situation like this film, and I saw people saying this film wouldn't even be able to be released today. I disagree. I just feel like
I disagree with that too. Yeah.
we're in a world where Tropic Thunder existed.
Yep.
Like,
Well, even Ben Stiller said Tropic Thunder wouldn't be made today.
I will. Here's the thing.
And that sucks. That sucks.
I feel like the biggest misconstruing piece of this whole conversation is when you have something like Life of Brian, which intelligently tackles tough conversations, versus, it's like you can't make jokes anymore. And it makes me mad John Cleese says that stuff, because like John Cleese is actually an intelligent comedian. When you have dumbasses who just go out and make completely sexist and racist jokes, and it's like, I can't say anything anymore.
Yes.
It's just like, there's a difference.
Yeah.
Like Blazing Saddles, 100% could come out today, and unfortunately would probably just be as relevant.
The sheriff is a thing.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's like, those kinds of things are highly intelligent tackling of these issues, and not just some dumbass trying to be controversial. And there's plenty of those dumbasses out there, and they're the ones who shouldn't be making these jokes, because
Absolutely.
they're not making jokes out of trying to put a spotlight on the issue.
It's the intent.
They are making those jokes, masking their own prejudices in a joke.
Yep. 100%.
There's a difference.
Yep.
And I feel like too many people are trying to lump them together. I'm like, there's a big difference.
There's a massive difference.
We still need commentary like this. It actually makes me sad, the state of comedy at this point, because comedy's not in a great place right now, because honestly, they're not making a ton of comedies. And like,
no. I think because everyone's too scared to. Like, straight out, just stupid comedy. If you go back the last, there are comedy movies, but maybe if you go back to Bridesmaids, it was probably the last big silly comedy, right? Like American Pie, you probably wouldn't make today.
Well, there's also there's a lot of things that are like, and American Pie is not smart and not doing commentary on anything.
No.
It's
but I mean, just like, the nature of the humor. It's
just being a raunchy teenage comedy with 30-year-olds.
Yeah.
Which the thing is, like, I think people need to open their eyes and realize there's a difference between making stupid raunchy comedies and things that are tackling tough. Because, like, here's the thing: Tropic Thunder's not a stupid raunchy comedy. It's something that's actually taking on very serious commentaries. And some, like, I don't think the Simple Jack stuff hits as well as it could have. But like, everything,
the Robert Downey Jr. thing
stuff
wouldn't go anymore.
Well, but the thing is, all the Robert Downey Jr. stuff is so on point and intelligent, because it's not making fun of black people. It's making fun of stupid white people who think that they could.
Exactly.
It's making fun of Richard Dreyfuss.
That's right, and that's the intent. Richard Dreyfuss,
who came out and said, "Oh, so I can't be a black man ever again in a movie." I'm like, no.
Was he one? Was he?
No, he's mad that he can't now.
Oh, but he never was one, though, was he?
He's mad that he can't have the opportunity in the future to play a black man if he wanted to.
Richard Dreyfuss. But is he getting any offers at all anymore? Like, isn't he like 80 or something?
Like straight to VOD crap, which is probably why he's just mad.
I didn't realize he was still acting.
Here's the thing: he needs to retire. And his issue, well, and that's the thing. Like, we shouldn't be putting on blackface to play black people.
No, you don't need to.
That's you hire black actors. It's that simple.
Exactly.
It's like, we should not be having John Wayne playing Genghis Khan or Mickey Rooney playing a very offensive Asian character in Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Oh my god.
But Kirk Lazarus, that whole situation is a commentary. It isn't like, wow, we need an actual person, like, we need an actor to play an actual black character. Let's get a white guy. No.
Yeah. That's not what it's. Yeah.
It's because here's the thing: Robert Downey Jr. is playing a white person,
and that's a genius of it, right?
Yeah.
Also, if you could also say Australians could get offended at it because he's playing an Australian. He's playing Russell Crowe effectively, I think, is what he's trying to do, right?
He's 100% playing Russell Crowe, and it's just like with like a dash of Daniel Day-Lewis for the whole method acting thing.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah.
literally a point where he's standing naked on his like flipping off people. Like that's definitely supposed to be Russell Crowe.
I've got to watch Tropic Thunder today now.
Well, that's the thing. Tropic Thunder, Life of Brian, Blazing Saddles. These are comedies that should and still be made today because they're
Absolutely, it's a
tackling challenging things. But I'm not going to argue with you that
yes.
people are afraid to do it
Yeah, no, they
because
absolutely
they
are.
are.
It's because studios don't want to be cancelled because of and it is a minority of voices out there, but they're the loudest voices of the minority because the people who don't believe it just don't bother commenting.
They're just sitting on their
Yeah,
computers like
yeah.
all over
They look out the
X.
window and go. They look out the window and go, what can I find that offends me today? All right, that tree out there.
I'm
Like
going to go on
that's
X and
basically
just
what
get
it's like.
mad about everything
Yeah,
because Elon Musk told me that I can. It's just like you think about it if
yeah.
you can, but don't think about if you should. Mortal
I
words,
want to suck
Dr.
on
Ian Malcolm.
it.
Now, I feel like it's about time to hit my last question here, honestly, because I feel like we hit on the other question that I was going to ask.
Yes.
Is
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
why is this film still considered a classic?
Because it's still relevant.
Cite
It's
the
still
last
relevant, basically.
15 minutes of what we were just talking
Yeah,
about.
the best films are still relevant. They're ageless. So the issues that they confront and educate us about are still relevant today, and that's what makes it a classic. Is also it's the best. I can't think of a better example of an anti-establishment satire. It's and that's basically what it is. It's anti-Roman, anti-organized religion, etc. So that's basically, and it's hilarious. Like the jokes still hold up today.
Also,
Even the touchy transgender one, it still holds up today. For me, someone of my age, I don't know if I showed that to my kids, I'd like to know what they thought of that scene itself. But back to the question, that's why it's still a classic. It's still hilarious. It's still poignant. It's still relevant.
well, and like I could speak from the perspective of the United States, organized religion is more significant than ever in the forefront of national discussion and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Because there's so much talk about people trying to force their organized religion's beliefs and morality upon the laws of our country. When
correct. Yes, yes,
we and this film really shows the problems of that. And
yeah,
the
yeah,
Romans in this are the same as so many other strong populations that have control over people.
yep,
And to
yep.
quote the immortal words of the here comes the new boss, same as the old boss. And it wasn't just the Romans, it was the Greeks before them, it was the British
Mm-hmm.
after the Romans, and to an extent the United States just turning around, just being like,
Yeah,
we helped you. Be American.
yeah,
We have this really cool thing.
yeah,
It's called capitalism. And it's that kind of thing. It's just
yeah,
like the same things happen all the time of other stronger countries and governments coming in and telling other people what to do.
yep.
And
I think what it boils down to, especially from the US, from my perspective, is that politics and religion are used as a weapon against what we were alluding to before to keep the masses divided. That's what it's for. Yeah. Religion is not for any other purpose than to divide people and make money for the people leading it.
make money for the Joel Osteens out there and the Pat
That
Robertsons when he was still alive.
how is that how is that shit legal? Honestly, how is that legal? I don't just how do people fall for it as well?
Why I
It
love the
blows
righteous
my
gemstone.
mind.
It's people are
Yeah,
desperate
yes,
and they target specific people. They target the
yeah,
desperate, the downtrodden, because they need something to believe in. And that
yeah,
is one of the biggest themes of this film is that humanity always feels like they have something that they need to believe in instead of
1000%.
believing in themselves.
Yes,
and those around them that love them and support them.
Yep.
So, yes, Life of Brian still
Perfectly said.
extremely poignant and still extremely relevant today. But
Always will be, I think.
absolutely. Adam, thank you so much for taking the time and going deep into talking about Life of
Yeah.
Brian and all the things that this
Thanks.
drums up.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for allowing an old man to rant. It was fun.
Well, it's the thing is like this is what film's about. Being able to talk about
Exactly.
things and bring them to the forefront. And exactly this is why people still talk about Life of Brian all these years later.
Art should make you think and question everything.
There you go. But thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.